Hey everyone, it's another week of Find Your Film. I am excited. We have two big movies. Spoiler alert, I love them both. Love both movies. So we have two big movies to cover this week. I'm excited. Both of us, Bruce Perky has seen it. Eric Holmes has seen it. Are you guys excited to cover these two movies, Bruce Perky?
Absolutely. Very excited. It's going to be
Very.
fun.
It's going to be fun. That sounded very genuine, but you disingenuine. The Bruce of Perk Hollow. I don't know. Ooh, that's interesting. The Bruce of Perk Hollow. I think that has something to do with a movie, the Bruce of Perk Hollow. And Fat Man Eric. Ooh, Fat Man Eric. What does that mean, Eric Holmes? Is that in reference to a movie we're covering this episode?
It could be. It could be. It's a jolly name, is what it is.
It's a jolly name. Is it a jolly moniker? It might be a jolly good movie, right?
It might be.
It might be, or it might not be. Might not be.
Might not be. You have to keep listening to find out.
Cliffhangers. After this break, we'll tell you.
Bruce, within the last week, have you been watching? A big part of Find Your Film is we're supposed to give our listeners a handful of really good movie recommendations. Do you have a whole bunch this week? Have you seen a lot of good stuff?
I have actually seen a lot of good stuff. I'm going to bring up, apart from the other ones we're going to talk about altogether, I'm going to bring three movies that I think are really good. But I've seen a lot this week because I've been stuck at home. So there you go.
Yeah. Is that the one benefit of being stuck at home, of just watching just a ton of stuff, or does it get old hat after a while?
No, I like it. I try to burn through at least a couple a day. Plus, I burned through a mini series as well, which I never watched. So that's another thing. But I'm not going to review that here. So
okay,
we're not Find Your TV.
Is it? Wait! Whoa! Is it worth watching though? The miniseries?
Oh yeah. If you saw the first season of The Boys, the second season is good.
Okay.
That's it. That's my review.
Okay. Good. Before we get to you, Fat Man Eric, I'm going to say this. I saw The Queen's Gambit a week and a half ago. Really loved it. I spent my entire Sunday binge watching it. I know it's a great show. Have you seen it, Eric Holmes? The Queen's Gambit? No. I've forgotten about it now. A week later. It's just because I'm not us Find Your Film guys. We're movie guys, and movies, they give you that shot of adrenaline that you sometimes, if it's a good hit, you never forget about it, like Fat Man. I wanted to say that right now. Just throw that first shot out, Fat Man shot out in the air. Mel Gibson, Walton Goggins, Fat Man Eric Holmes. Have you been watching a lot of movies last week?
Yeah, watch a couple of them that we'll talk about, and watch a couple more that we won't talk about. I don't know if it's clear, but I really hate talking shit about movies. So usually if I see something and I'm like, if there's nothing good to say about it, it's usually best to just kind of let it go. And we're not that show, but there's plenty of other shows that are like that. Now, that said, there might be some that like we have to watch because of but we're not mean spirited here. We'll put it that way.
Okay, good.
That's
yes.
true.
We're not mean spirited, but I thank the heavens that we have Bruce Perky, because he will give us a very unfiltered, candid take, because he is a huge cinema lover.
I need to come up with, I need to have a sounder or something when Bruce's like, it's Bruce's hot take, and that little sounder pop in or something.
Hot take by Bruce.
Something, I don't know.
Before we get to our weekly movie rewind, where we hopefully do we have a movie rewind where one of us has seen a previous movie that the other person has seen? No movie rewinds this week before we get into our stuff.
No, I was gonna watch the Diane Lane and Kevin Costner one, but it's not out yet, so I'll rewind that pretty soon, because I did hear both your takes on it last week, and it got me interested. And then I saw the trailer. I'm like, I gotta see what this thing's about. So
I guess if I pan a movie, people want to watch it, so they should hire me to pan movies, because then people want to watch them.
Bruce, what movie? What was the movie called? Was it called Let It Go? Please, Let It Go.
Let It Go. Let It Go. Yes.
No. I liked it more than Bruce. But if you want to listen to our
review.
pretty
close though. We were pretty close.
We were very close on that one. Yeah. So were you surprised that I actually did not like it as much as?
it was one of those I could see it going either way because it's we already covered it. Listen to our last episode, guys.
Okay, now this is a big one. This is okay. First off, let's start off with Mel Gibson. I'm a huge Mel Gibson fan. Do we both, all three of us, agree Mel Gibson is pretty much high on as far as movie stars go? Bruce Perky, pretty.
He's been he's great. He's tons of charisma. He's a great director in his own right, and he's super problematic, but doesn't keep me from watching Roman Polanski movies or Woody Allen or Mel Gibson. So it is what it is.
That is fair enough. And same with you, Eric. Eric Holmes, pretty high
You
on your
know,
list as far as Mel Gibson goes.
the guy making the hamburgers at McDonald's might be a huge racist, but I'm still gonna go there and eat. So,
so if racist McDonald's workers look for Eric, he would love to have you serve him.
That probably came off way bad, but it's really troublesome. Like with Mel Gibson, obviously with his past, but dude, he's good. I have the same kind of torn the same way with like the movie Jeepers Creepers. I love that movie. The writer director is a pedophile, and so
it's true. Yeah,
I love Valkyrie, and I love a lot of Bryan Singer's movies, but he's got allegedly, I think we have to say allegedly with him, but yeah, I mean, it's weird. People have their past and they do despicable things. At the same time,
it's an age-old.
Oh, go ahead.
It's an age-old question, right? I mean, separating the art from the artist. And I totally understand people that are like, "Hey, I won't support anything they do. That's it."
Yeah.
Or maybe they'll say, like one thing I've heard people say, like, because Polanski's made some great movies, but obviously he's got
Polanski, yeah.
But I mean, people say like, okay, but I won't go see a new movie of his in the theater. I'll just buy a used copy of his DVDs or do something like that, or some kind of workaround that makes you feel internally okay with it. But either way, I mean, there's artists throughout history that I am sure have some pretty heinous pasts. So,
Yeah.
And you know what? It's hard to say this, but sometimes your own demons and proclivities or aberrations, and let's just say just some of that darkness feeds into the work. That's the bottom line. I mean, Manhattan, my favorite Woody Allen film, it's very problematic. But it's beautifully shot. It's an illegal romance, but it's well written and it's a great film. It's a great effing film,
Even Rosemary's Baby, Greg, which you haven't seen. If you've seen that movie, you'd really know how that relates to some of his problems. But I guess you don't know that.
I think where my line is personally, and like it, there's some wiggle room for sure. I think my line would be like Cannibal Holocaust would be a good example.
Yeah.
I saw the movie, didn't know, and then I did know like that they were actually torturing animals, and I just can't do it because I like watching violence in movies, but I like to appreciate the special effects when they're actually doing it. It's like, oh, it's kind of.
But to me, that's judging the art, right? You're judging the art there. So the filmmakers could be the greatest people in the world, but the art could be despicable itself.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to support art that is actually abusing people, or you know what I'm saying. So
but then I watch porn too, and so I mean they look like they're having a good time, but I don't know. I don't know. I guess when it's like the real life the thing that I hate is actually on screen for real, that's probably where I get turned away. And but then again, it might be a case where it's a documentary and that's the point of it. I didn't see Cuties, but I guess there's I'm gonna be talking about shit I don't know about, so I'll stop there. But yeah, there's lines, but that line is thin and it moves sometimes, and I don't know. But in short, Mel Gibson is talented as hell as an actor, as a director. So what can you do? And if you don't like him, I get it. I'm not gonna argue with you on it.
Well, okay. The reason why I'm excited that we're reviewing Fatman right now. By the way, Fatman It's a movie which has Mel Gibson playing Kris Kringle, aka Santa Claus, this time out. It's not a innocuous holiday film. Santa Claus is having financial problems. He he brings trillions and trillions of dollars of business, but he can't afford to keep the light bill on. So there's some kind of corruption going on with the U.S. governments, or maybe the governments across the world. How come they can't subsidize Santa Claus? And so when we see Santa, aka Fat Man, aka Mel Gibson playing Fat Man slash Santa Claus, he is in a very bad state. He has a loving wife played by Marianne Jean Baptiste, and he has people who really love him, his elves, his worker bees. They love him, they're loyal to him, but he has no money. And he feels like he has to compromise himself to and actually not outsource, actually have some of his workers work for the US government to actually, you know, get a big check to help next Christmas work to go through. So that's sort of the premise of Fat Man, but the real interesting kind of misdirection is the 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 actual plot of Fat Man is he puts a lump of coal into a spoiled rich kid's present, and this rich kid decides to hire a contract killer played by Justified slash the Hateful Eight star Walton Goggins to track Santa Claus down in the North Pole and ultimately kill him. That's the premise of Fat Man. It's a Mel Gibson headline movie. What I really enjoyed, by the way, this movie is directed by Esham Nelms and Ian Nelms. I really love their 2017 film Small Town Crime. Have any of you guys seen Small Town Crime with John Hawkes, Anthony Anderson, Robert Forster, Clifton Collins Jr.? Excellent, excellent movie. I wish it was still on Netflix. This is one of those movies. Remember we were talking about how much we both love The Death of Dick Long. This is one of Small Town Crime is one of those movies. It's a noir, it's a murder mystery, but it goes a little bit hybrid-y on it. And I really thought it was a really fresh take on the genre. And Fat Man, to me, it just seemed like it was an interesting movie. I'm a huge Gibson fan, and I love the showdown, the inevitable showdown at the end. I'm a big Walton Goggins fan, and a big chunk of the movie just has him trying to track down Santa Claus, which I think a lot of people will say, this is not just a Santa Claus movie. This is a Hitman movie, and there will be complaints, but I actually love that part. Now, let's go to you, Bruce Perky. Your overall thoughts on Fat Man. Did it work for you? Did it not work?
My sounder? Is my sounder going to come in here? So I watched it before you two. One of the first things I wrote down as a note was the worst movie I've seen in 2020.
Wow.
The worst movie I've seen in 2020.
The worst movie you've seen.
Hated just about everything in this movie.
You saw Tesla, right?
I did. Tesla was better.
The Painted Bird.
Better.
Tenet.
Better.
Whoa.
I hated this movie so much. This movie,
the
other note I wrote was unsuccessful mess in every aspect of film.
Capone.
I didn't see it.
Great.
Didn't see it.
I love Capone too. By the way, I love Capone. So it was a mess. It was incoherent for you. It just didn't.
And the biggest sin of all, well, first of all, it wasn't funny. Oh. I don't know what it was supposed to be. Was it supposed to be funny?
Yeah, I thought it was.
Was it supposed to be action?
I love the action. The little.
Was it supposed to be satire?
Yeah, I mean the corporatization of the consumerism part with taking over the beauty of Christmas. No, it just did. Oh, anything good to say about terrible? Zero.
I didn't give it 0 stars. So it had a few things. I mean, it was shot clearly. The sound mixing was audible. The acting was fine. It was fine. Okay. I mean, Mel Gibson was fine. Jean Baptiste was the shining thing in this movie, but they gave her nothing to do except be the wife of Mel Gibson. She was just kind of the doting wife, you know. She had one thing to do towards the end, which I won't talk about, but even that didn't make any sense within the logic of the movie. And the biggest problem with the movie, now here's the biggest sin of this movie.
Okay.
It was boring. It showed all the wrong parts of the story. okay, it's an early thing, and then I'll let you guys talk because I know everyone's going to probably like it better than I did. But there's an early time when he comes back from delivering the presents, right?
Yeah.
And he's been shot, and I'm like, okay, well that's different. We didn't see any of that. We never saw him deliver presents. I don't think we ever even saw the sleigh. We saw the reindeer. And then like the whole thing with Walter, his character. So he had all these things that are supposed to make him like quirky and interesting, right? But we don't understand them. Like he has a hamster he brings with him. Okay. Why? What is the point of it? It's just to be quirky. This struck me as somebody who loves Coen Brothers movies and doesn't understand why they're good.
Wow. Oh, man. I give you credit, Bruce. That is a tough review.
This is Cats for 2020.
The Cats for body blow. Eric Holmes, let's recover. Say something. What are your thoughts? Where do you land on this?
I was on the complete opposite spectrum of everything Bruce said.
Hated this movie so much.
Well, first of all,
I love the passion, Bruce, by the way. I love the passion on this.
First of all, bold statement claiming it's worse than Tesla, but I digress there.
Everybody wants to rule the world.
It's close. I think, okay, I'll clarify and let you talk. The only reason it's worse than Tesla is this had, like, I am always more upset with a movie that had so much more going for it.
Yeah.
And this movie had so much more going for it and still fell. Whereas Tesla was so low, that it didn't have much it could do with it other than, Ethan. So anyway, I'll stop.
Okay. Eric Holmes.
All right. So I gotta reconfigure my brain. I knew you didn't like it that much, but then, oh man. So, yeah. Fatman, quite a great movie, I thought. Fun. Well, not a great movie, but I don't know what that says.
I'm trying to show you where I wrote worst of 2020.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. It kind of the things I liked about it was it kind of committed to its silliness while also committing to the fact that it's a assassin movie. It's a thriller, but they don't shy away. A good comparison, and on the opposite end of the spectrum, is The Man Who Killed Hitler and then the Bigfoot.
Yeah.
It's got such a silly title, but the problem I had with that is that movie took itself too seriously, and it didn't really, according, they're screaming over there, so pardon me for that.
Yeah.
They're watching Fatman. They're watching Fatman. Save them.
But the Man Who Killed Hitler and then the Bigfoot, they never really like took control of the silliness of it. It was just all it was all serious, and it's like, I'm a stoic man, and I got to kill Bigfoot, and I got to.
That movie was more of a sentimental, nostalgic movie. I ended up liking it because of that. But yeah, I could see a lot of people didn't like it because of it didn't go for that silliness.
Well, so at least according to me, and not everyone, because Bruce obviously doesn't agree. But what I liked about Fatman was it took certain aspects serious, but it also knew that its premise was stupid. I mean, it has a stupid premise. I just happen to like it. And it didn't really shy away from that. It kind of leaned into that at certain points, and then went back and kind of. To me, it was a good balance. I hate comparing anything to Gremlins because it's the greatest movie ever made, but Gremlins kind of does that thing where it's like, oh, we're comedy now, we're gonna nail the comedy. We're drama now, we're gonna nail the drama. We're Christmas, so on and so forth. I thought Fatman did this quite well. When it was supposed to be thrilling and violent, it was thrilling and violent. When it was supposed to be silly, it was silly. And what's the Mrs. Claus's name?
Yeah, Marianne Jean Baptiste.
I love her. I loved her in this movie. Absolutely loved her. And I think Bruce actually agrees with that.
I do. Yeah.
As far as performance wise, and I actually liked her character a lot. Because to Bruce's point, she didn't have much to do early on, but I always got a real warmth, lot of warmth from her.
Yeah.
Almost to the point where I wanted to reach through the screen and just give her a big hug and go, "I love you so much. Please hang out with me." And there comes a point at the end that we won't spoil. I wanted to see a movie about her. I wanted certain things to happen. Have Fatman too. Well, I wouldn't call it
I know what you're
Woman,
saying.
but I want to see a movie about her character because to Bruce's point, she didn't have much to do, and maybe this is her performance. I got the sense that there's more to her character than the movie lets on, and I want to see more about that character. I want to see where she came from. I want to see where she goes from here on out. And Walton Goggins' character, I mean, I love Walton Goggins and everything.
I love
him. And that there's little moments with him that I really liked, especially when he's doing the road trip and they do that quick cut of him flipping through the different music that he's listening to. And I think I mentioned on our thread, off air, that's my road trip playlist. Like the stuff he was playing is like, all right, we're gonna listen to punk. Okay, we're gonna listen to metal. Okay, we're gonna listen to Air Supply. Okay, we're gonna listen to country. All right, we're gonna listen to talk radio. Yep, there we go. And as they were, so yeah, there were little moments like that. And then there was I'll let you do the line, Greg, if you want. I didn't know what you were talking about at first until you mentioned it, and I didn't know right away until you mentioned it. I'm like, oh yeah, I did pick out that line, and
it's just a funny line. It's a random line. It has one of my all-time favorite movie lines.
I don't even think it would be funny if we said it because it kind of works with because it builds up to that punchline.
Yeah,
but I mean, this isn't not going to be my favorite movie of the year, but this is definitely something I'll probably watch every Christmas from here on out. It's kind of like what was the one with Kurt Russell as Santa Claus?
Ooh, I remember that one. That was
it's nothing. It's not it's not the greatest movie ever made, but it's exactly what I thought it was going into it.
Yeah.
And for me, Fatman is the same thing. I kind of got a sense of watching the trailer, like I think I know what this is, and I watch it. I'm like, yep, this is exactly what this is, and I love it. So I'm on the complete opposite end of Bruce.
I love this movie. I forced started on my review. It was to Bruce in defense of Bruce's review. This movie is totally random. It's just a totally random film, and you can take it both ways. Both ways are valid. You can really love the random "what the f is going on here" moment. I mean, there's that one sequence like where we're talking about where Skinny Man is just shopping for clothes, and that's just most people say this is a useless scene, but I loved every single nonsensical part of this movie. So that was just my ultimate take. I ended up really falling in love with Fatman. This is one of those movies I could continue to watch over and over again, but I would tell people it's not going to be for everybody. So,
quick question though: when was this movie filmed? Like I know it hasn't come out yet, but was it filmed this year?
It was probably filmed last year. I'm thinking maybe last year.
Because Ben Shapiro looks really, really young in this movie as the kid.
Very, very good. Very, very funny. And Bruce, you're gonna have the last say on Fatman. Any other things you want to say about?
Just that this kind of proves the point that so we talk about Gremlins, which is a really good comparison, where if a movie really kind of tries to do a lot of things and it works for you, it's like the best, you know what I mean? Or if it doesn't work for you in those ways, then it's a mess. I mean, it's the same movie. For me, it's a mess because none of the parts worked. Like the humor didn't work, the action didn't work, the randomness didn't work. But if they did work for you, then it's an awesome mix, So
Bruce, sometimes these are the movies I love to talk about because there is such a wide, there's just chasm of just You either love it or you hate it. These type of movies, I just love talking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, and it's like we talked about with comedy. I mean, essentially, this is a comedy, right? I mean, I would say at its core, it's a comedy, and comedy and horror are the two most subjective ways to go. And if you do not vibe with whatever form that's hitting, you're pretty much going to be out. You know what I mean? Like whether it's I don't know, pick your comedian that you like, Pauly Shore. If Pauly Shore is not your thing, you're probably not going to like any Pauly Shore movie, but if he is, you're probably going to like him. So there's going to be that love-hate almost built into those kind of movies, I think. So
I think also like differing opinions like this kind of illustrates like I give Tesla a lot of shit, as I believe we all do.
Yeah.
But just because we hate a movie, there's someone that saw Tesla and that just I don't understand. That movie's fucking awesome. And that's completely valid.
And my attitude always is with all reviews, and this is from other people too. It's like, I will tell you why I didn't like it. Yeah. So you can at least hopefully have an idea that, that doesn't sound like that's for me. Or, hey, that actually, like, how many times have I reviewed something bad and you're like, that sounds great. I want to go watch that movie.
Most times.
Which is great, which is good too, because then at least you're getting the information. That's really the point, right? And then it's just a matter of letting the person like vibe with you or not vibe with you. That's what I used to love about like Siskel and Ebert, love them or hate them. I usually knew, depending on how they were reviewing a movie, whether it was a movie I wanted to still go see. And they hated I think they hated Blue Velvet. I was like, I got to go see that movie, and I loved it. But I mean, I could see why people don't. So,
all right. So Fatman, it's in select theaters November 13th. It hits. I hear some echoing from Bruce. I'm not a good sound mixer, so your voice is gonna show up, Bruce. And it's on demand and on digital November 17th. I loved it. Eric Holmes really enjoyed it as well. He's gonna watch it every year. And Bruce Perky had a different opinion. It was quote unquote his the worst movie of 2020. So that is our
far. The year is young.
the year is young, and you know what? I don't know if this will make you want to see Small Town Crime or maybe never ever see it. Hopefully one day, Bruce and Eric, you will come across that 2017 movie Small Town Crime, a very interesting indie noir from the Nelms brothers. All right, so we're next up before we get to Bruce and Eric's picks. We have one more movie that's coming out this week on Netflix. It's called The Life Ahead. It's headlined by Sophia Loren. And Bruce, I'm going to start with you first. I think growing up, were you a Sophia Loren fan? Have you seen a lot of her movies? Because I like to consider myself a cinephile, but this is a total blind spot for me regarding the movies of Sophia Loren. I just remember one movie she was in called Operation Crossbow that I saw maybe when I was 7 or 8. But other than that, I'm clueless.
You must have seen, was it one of the Grumpy Old Men? She was in that, I think.
Never did see any of those. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I've seen a fair amount of movies with her. I remember her catching my eye, so to speak, in what was the movie that used to be called? It used to be a movie show out, and you probably remember this in the 70s or 80s. It was called like That's Entertainment or something weird like that.
Okay.
And it had this.
That's Entertainment. Yeah, I remember that.
Maybe that's what it was called. And it had this opening montage of like Jaws and all this stuff, and it had Sophia Loren in it as well.
That's it.
Yeah, from I think The Boy and the Dolphin, and you can go look up the pictures, but it caught my eye.
As a
youthful young man, I was like, oh well, hello, Sophia Loren, nice to meet you. But she's I mean, she's an icon now. I mean, what can you say about her? She's still acting at, how old is she now? Like 80?
In her 80s.
89? 88?
Around that. Yeah, she's I'm going to look at Eric Holmes. Have you ever seen a Sophia Loren film or no?
I didn't. She's kind of one of those people, like Carol Channing is a good example where I know the name. And in fact, watching this, I didn't even know it was her until I looked it up and I'm like, oh, that's Sophia Loren. Okay. And you mentioned Grumpy Old Man. I've seen those, so clearly I've seen her. But
I feel like she was in the second one. Yeah,
I think I know the name more than the person, if that makes sense.
Okay, well, she's 86, and yeah, the life ahead. It is an interesting movie. It's kind comes out this week on Netflix. It's directed by Eduardo Ponte. Eduardo Ponte is her son. And here's a brief synopsis of The Life Ahead. It hits theaters. It hits Netflix November 13th on Friday. In seaside Italy, a Holocaust survivor with a daycare business, Madame Rosa, played by Sophia Loren, takes in 12-year-old street kid Momo, the boy who recently robbed her. The two loners become each other's protectors, anchoring an unconventional family. Now, first off, before we get to you, Bruce, on your initial thoughts, your thoughts on The Life Ahead, I ended up solid experience for me. It's been a week since I've seen it. It's not a 4-star, excellent, great movie like Fatman, but this is a 3.5, meaning I recommend it. One of the big reasons why I recommend The Life Ahead as a solid watch is you think it's going to be this weepy drama where it's just so overly emotional and you're supposed to get your Kleenex and it's going to incite some tears. But the director, Eduardo Ponte, I think he just wanted to tell a good story between two just separate people bonding for a moment in time. I just thought I felt it was a real earnest film that didn't play the cheap card of sentimentality. So Bruce, just your thoughts on The Life Ahead.
Worst movie of 20. No. No. I'm pretty much right in line with you on this. I was also worried that it was going to veer into crazy sentimentality, and I think it teeters on the edge. There's a few spots where it almost goes there, but I think overall it stays grounded and it really stays with the characters and it lets them be realistic. And we didn't mention his name, but Ibrahima Gueye, I believe, is the boy.
Yeah,
nailed it.
If he doesn't work, yeah, thank you. If he doesn't work in this movie doesn't work. Because Sophia is great. She's solid, but he is the heart of this movie, and he has to do quite a bit of acting. And I would say is like 11 maybe in this movie, something like that, 12.
Yeah, he's a presence. And that character of Momo, he's a street kid. He's tough. He has his past, but I think it's a really well developed character, and it feels like a real person. This movie doesn't go for the cheap stuff. Eric Holmes, your thoughts on The Life Ahead?
Yeah, I like this one. This one was kind of a bummer for me, because it was well, first of all, let's talk about the title, The Life Ahead. That horrible title for a movie. Because I was thinking of the movie Swimming with Sharks with Kevin Spacey and Frank Whaley, where they're talking about they're passing the script around, and the script's called Real Life, and then Kevin Spacey does it. Real life? Are you kidding me? Like with that title, like call literally anything else. This is kind of like that. The movie's a lot better than the title suggests, because The Life Ahead is kind of shit title, but I guess there's kind of a story. It's more like you got characters in a situation and you just kind of see how the situation plays out. And it gets really sad, but it gets really uplifting sometimes. And who's the am I crazy, or was that a trans actor?
Right.
Yeah.
The female, or I don't want to speak more than that because I'll probably say the wrong thing.
I don't specifically know. I'm thinking it might be an actor playing a trans.
All the actors were great. Sophia Loren was great, and this was like the first time I was like, because I looked it up. I'm like, who is she? Oh, Sophia. Oh, okay, I've heard of her. Yeah, she's really great in this. As you said, the main kid is. Everyone is great in this, and then the trans actor really stood out to me.
Yes.
Like kind of similar to Mrs. Claus and Fatman. I wish I knew their name, but yeah, they were really great, and I would have liked to see more.
Yeah, Eric, to your point, this movie could have had the whole, right, Bruce, this whole, oh, look at we're in this complex, and oh, we're so eccentric and we're colorful and we do all these really wacky, wild, crazy things, but oh, hey, we're an extended family and look at us. And this movie refuses to do that. You said it might teeter a little bit, right? But I just
a little, but I think it doesn't ever fall into it all the way. I would say it's like, for example, like none of the characters are all good or all bad. Like you could see the stereotypical version of this, where Momo's the kind of the criminal side of things that he gets into could be shown as just all bad, but it's not. It's not shown as a positive influence necessarily, but it's not shown as something that really hurts him that much. You know what I'm saying? And that's really interesting. Or one other little small point, and it's not a spoiler at all, but there's a point where he discovers the tattoo on her arm, and you're like, okay, here comes the Holocaust stuff, right? Yep. And he asks her about it, and she just kind of brushes him off, and it never really gets discussed in detail.
Yep.
Like we know what it means, and he doesn't. And she's like, that's from a long time ago. And I think that was amazing.
All right. And hey,
there's real quick. There's a lot of that in this movie. So again, I mentioned the trans actor. She's just a character. She's not, hi, I'm a trans. They never bring it up once, and if they did, I missed it. Like you said, with the Holocaust, you see the tattoo, and that's the last to bring up. And then there was this weird, almost kind of hinting at a racist part, but they kind of blew by it. Where, you're trying to hook me and Madame Rosa up, aren't you? It's like, yeah, and it's like, well, that's not going to happen. I'm Jewish. I was like, wait, what? Yeah. So then there's what was the movie we were talking about, the watch list or and so with this one is kind of similar in that I think there's a lot of like social or things that make sense to people in that area that probably I certainly didn't pick up on. Definitely that I'm Jewish line. I mean, I got that it was kind of racist, but I think that has more to do with the culture that they're in.
The culture. Yeah.
And so I'm guessing I really wonder what this movie feels like to someone that's steeped in that culture and knows a lot about it. Right. If maybe they don't say the things because it's like, yeah, we know, move along. We've heard the story before. Where you got people like us who aren't steeped in that culture, where they just kind of barely bring up something. And we're like, wait, what? Go back. What are you talking about there?
This is where, I mean, to me, this is where I would say it's really well written. It's what you're talking about is where you get these little hints of things and it feels genuine and you trust the writer. In this case, I do, at least. I trust the writer to be like, okay, this is just the tip of an iceberg of a real actual character. And their motivations make sense because they're actually lived lives. And they're not, like, once again, they're not all good or bad, right? The character of the rug, the guy that's doing the rug, and Sophia Loren's character are from two different worlds religiously, but that doesn't keep them from being great friends and having connections. And they're not gonna just be a stereotype in either way. And I think that goes with Momo as well. So I think that's the real strength of this movie. And people who especially like well-drawn character dramas, I think are gonna really appreciate this movie a lot. That might not be some people's thing. And in that case, you kind of won't probably even watch it because it won't be your thing,
Right. No. And Bruce, to your point, also, some people who will really are really craving for just a sweet, sappy, sentimental thing with all this operatic, emotional stuff. They will be disappointed because they might want syrup along with their meal on our pancakes, but this one is just completely dry that. So look here, you're directing your mom, who's an icon for this movie, right? What stops you from having the writers put some big monologue for your mom, okay, to say, and she could do it within the framework of this narrative because she's friggin' Sophia Loren, okay? But in reality, Madame Rosa, she doesn't have these showy monologues. This is just, like you said, a well-drawn character, and they stayed within those confines. I think that's, even though this is not this is a 3.5 solid thing for me, I really applaud that it actually just told the story without all that frivolous stuff. Which is saying that maybe I should really redo my review on Fatman. So
It's a different thing, man.
I know it's a different thing. I'm just kidding. But anyways, The Life Ahead, directed by Eduardo Ponte, headlined by Sophia Loren and that actor, that young actor, like we mentioned, who is so fantastic, Ibrahima Gueye. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm probably wrong. Gueye opens streams on Netflix starting November 13th. We all give it a solid recommend. Eric Holmes, we are going to start with you for your first recommendation for Find Your Film.
Okay. Well, let me pull this up right here. Gonna take for a while to load. And I guess we got a movie from 1979. And still loading up here. 1979, directed by James Bridges.
Okay, Jeff Bridges. Okay, I was gonna say, does it star Kirk Douglas?
No, directed by James Bridges, but it does star Michael Douglas, Jane Fonda, Jack Lemmon, Wilford Brimley, and it's called The China Syndrome. You guys seen this one?
Yes.
Never heard of it.
This is a movie. There's a movie that I kept meaning to bring up last couple episodes, but I keep pushing it back and pushing it back, pushing it back. And now is the time we're going to talk about China Syndrome, because this movie is fantastic. It's a
first time watching, by the way, first time.
No, I've seen this movie a couple times now. Okay. So you got Jane Fonda and Michael Douglas. Jane Fonda is a news reporter, and Michael Douglas is the cameraman. And they're going to a nuclear power plant. You know, they're just doing we're going to follow the guy. It's the guy that I forget his name, but he plays the dad in Teen Wolf. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yes, but I can't think of his name either. Yeah, I know what you mean.
One of these days I will do homework and get his name.
Sorry, I didn't write down the IMDb for your movie.
Yeah, that's fine. But anyway, so the dad from Teen Wolf, he's like one of the people that works at the nuclear power plant. And he's Michael Douglas and Jane Fonda is following him around, just doing a news piece on it. Nothing big, kind of a puff piece, because that's kind of what Jane Fonda's character is. She's the one that, oh, look what the dog does, and there's a squirrel doing skiing. She's that kind of news reporter, but she really wants to get the real news. Anywho, so they go there, and Jack Lemmon, runs the kind of the control center, and Wilford Brimley's in there as well. And he kind of runs the control center within the nuclear power plant. And Jane Fonda and Michael Douglas just happen to get there in time when something is going down. And the dad from Teen Wolf's like, no, this is just normal. They're just doing a test. And they're looking at Jack Lemmon just sweating his balls off, like, oh, we're all gonna die. We're going, because they can't hear him. They can't hear him, but they can see how they're acting. And basically there was almost a nuclear meltdown. And they were able to stop it in time. And then things go back to normal. But then Michael Douglas, like, no, something went on there. And then they start investigating. And then the whole rest of the movie is them trying to figure out what went wrong, why did it go wrong, and is there someone to blame for this? And some may say that, and I've heard people say that this is like an anti-nuclear power, anti-nuclear movie, and it's really not, because when you watch the movie, you find out that it's not the nuclear power that's the problem. It's people cutting corners in safety that's the problem. Oh, we can't do that. That's going to cost millions of dollars. Oh, we can't do that. We're going to have to shut down, and it's going to cost us, we could be making money at, that's what the movie is. It's basically a movie about you harness this power, and it's good. I mean, nuclear power, I think, is probably good for, society as a whole, as long as you can contain it, as long as you can be responsible with it. Space travel is, I think, ultimately good for mankind. But if you're not going to check the welds on the spaceship before it takes off, then maybe that won't turn out so good. But this is a fantastic movie. Jack Lemmon's awesome. Wilford Brimley's awesome. Michael Douglas, Jane Fonda.
Is it a
dad from Teen Wolf?
Is it nail
Yes.
biting? It's a suspenseful kind of thing, right?
That is, well, okay. So the opening scene is very nail biting. The part where shit goes down
Mm-hmm.
and then something else happens later on also becomes nail biting. The rest of it's kind of kind of similar to Zodiac. Not that it's about a serial killer, because it's not at all, but like what would they call that? A procedural kind of thing.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure things out. So there's not a lot of suspense in that part, but there's a lot of discovery there. And so
That's really
that
cool.
part's really interesting. But yeah, when it gets suspenseful, it gets really, really suspenseful.
Yeah, it's good.
And yeah, Jack Lemmon sells the crap out of that, especially in the early scene and towards the last scene later scene at that point. But yeah, I would absolutely recommend anyone check this out. It's called the China Syndrome. I mean, they mentioned in the movie. Basically, the China Syndrome is you got a meltdown, and the idea is that when the uranium, I guess, melts down, it's so hot it burns through the earth that it goes all the way to China, which is this is set in Los Angeles, so I don't think that's physically possible because it would have to go down the earth and kind of up and over to. I think if you're in Los Angeles and you go straight through the earth, you'll end up at the tail end of Africa, I believe. So
Did you
there's a
see this
little value added
on DVD? Did you see this on YouTube, Eric, or you rented it?
I have a DVD of it, and I have a digital copy of it. So
Sweet.
This is, oddly enough, this is a comfort movie for me. For some reason, I really like to get suspended out of my pants, and it calms me down. And
Bruce, when's the last time you saw this one?
Oh, quite a while. Probably since it came out. Maybe. Well, no, that's probably not true. I probably saw it on VHS in the mid '80s. Maybe that's probably the last time I've seen it. But I remember loving it. I know the type of movie it is, which they made so well in the early '80s and '70s.
Yeah.
That kind of tense conspiracy, like it's almost like it almost has the effect of almost like a good courtroom drama in that it's like very contained, and it's not people chasing in cars, but they still ramp up the tension with just the situation and the acting. And that's like Jack Lemmon, like peak Jack Lemmon right there. Perfect role for him. That kind of nervous, everyman, white collar dude that's kind of like being pushed around by something, that he can't control. That's him right there.
I remember, Eric, I forgot what you were saying. I think on one of the previous episodes, you were saying that you might consider down the road doing a Find Your Film Director Spotlight on filmmaker James Bridges. And I was actually looking up some of his movies, and I was like, wow, Eric Holmes, really interested. I was wondering why you wanted to actually do a spotlight on him. But he's done. James Bridges, you never really know that name. He's unknown, even if you're a cinephile.
But you know his movies for sure. What do you do? Urban Cowboy and
Bright Lights, Big City. Bright Lights, Big City.
There you go.
Perfect.
Was Tex one of them, or was that someone else?
That was someone. That was someone else. I got to look up who did Tex, but he did. We had a conversation several months or maybe several episodes back. The Paper Chase, and he directed The Paper Chase.
There you go.
That's
it.
Actually,
that was the first time I was going to bring it up. I was like, we're going to bring it up, and then I didn't, but I'm doing it now. So there you go.
So possibly you might be, and you know what might whet your appetite to actually possibly down the line consider doing, covering James Bridges is I was looking up the 1984 film he did called Mike's Murder, which stars Deborah Winger. Okay. Yeah. You never heard of this because me and Bruce were old guys. We remember this when it actually was released, Eric. And here's the thing, Bruce, I had no idea. I was doing some reading on Mike's Murder. I think it's hard to actually get, or I don't even know if you can get it on digital. You remember it bombed when it came out. It was panned.
Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember much about it other than it being out. Yeah.
Supposedly, this Deborah Winger film is just an excellent movie that just got buried. So this is another thing that might be interesting to look into the life of this director, James Bridges, especially since he died at age 57 in 1993. So his promising career, he had all these really cool films, like you were saying, Eric, but it was cut short because his last film was Bright Lights, Big City. He died 5 years later. So that is James Bridges. That is The China Syndrome. It's not available on streaming right now, but like Eric was saying, you can purchase it or rent it on digital. Bruce Berkey, what's your next pick? What's your first pick?
My first pick is a really oddball movie that I just kind of happened across from 1955, although the time period changes from 1953 to 1955 to 1957. But generally, it's called 1955, and it's called Dementia. Also, it's known as Daughter of Horror. And there is a big difference depending on which one you watch. So it's directed by John Parker. It's less than 60 minutes. So that's a selling point for you guys.
Yes, definitely.
They described it in a few things as a beat expressionistic horror noir, if that helps you know what it's like. The basic concept is this. It starts. So here's the big difference, though. You want to find Dementia, not Daughters of Horror, in my opinion, because if you get Daughters of Horror, there is voiceover throughout. Because this essentially is it's a dialogue-less movie. It's not a silent movie, but there's really no dialogue in the whole movie. So if you watch Dementia without the voiceover, you get to kind of discover the weirdness a little more organically than having it be kind of told to you what's happening. So anyway, it starts out, you kind of start out with a cityscape, and it zooms in on a Skid Row hotel window with the neon light, black and white, and a woman wakes up, and she gets up and she has her dress on, and she's got this amulet, and she goes to the dresser drawer and opens it, and there's a knife inside, and she looks at the knife and kind of laughs. And then she walks out of her apartment into the night of Skid Row, and her night of insanity or dementia commences. And it's just weird. It's almost like, I don't know how to describe it. To me, it's almost like A Christmas Carol in 50s Skid Row, because there's stuff where she has, it's like a morality play, but it's also really pulpy and really like, she walks along and there's like a small man with he's a newspaper guy, and he drops the newspaper and it says, unsolved stabbings, and she looks at it, and then, walks away. So there's all that kind of, it's very dramatic and overdone, but really fun and interesting. And especially when she meets up with Bruno de Visota, he's the actor who plays Rich Man. She basically gets into Rich Man's car and goes off with him. And there's a whole sequence with Rich Man that is amazing to behold, what happens between her and him. Now, there's a couple little fun facts, and then if it sounds like your cup of tea, go for it. It's less than an hour. How can you go wrong? A couple weird facts are the director, Adrienne Barrett, who plays the Gaiman, who is the main woman. She's the main person in this whole movie. She was his secretary. She had a bad dream, a nightmare, and they were going to turn it into a short. So he said, okay, you play the woman in the nightmare and we'll direct the short. But as they went, the short just kept expanding and became this. And Bruno Visota, who was like a more experienced actor, he's like the most experienced person on the set. He plays the rich fat man with the cigar, that kind of dude, right? Mm-hmm. And he kept having, she's not an actress, so he kept having to do things like tickle her in certain things to get her to laugh, shooting the fake gun off set to like startle her. So he was basically doing all these things like William Friedkin things to get her animated. And then the only other things I'll bring into this that were kind of fun. If you've ever seen the original Blob, at the end of the original Blob, all the kids are in the movie theater when the Blob invades the movie theater, and the movie that's on the screen is this movie. And if you've ever heard of Dementia 13, which is Francis Ford Coppola's first horror movie,
right?
They had to name it 13 because this movie existed. They didn't know it existed because it was kind of buried and not seen much, and kind of got a cult status. So,
well, okay. So is this movie worth watching because of its cult status, Bruce, or do you think it's just a fun movie to watch? Because I'm looking at some of these pictures. It's amateurish, but they look good. These are good looking.
It's both. It's a weird oddity that has like it has some really interesting stuff that you only get with this kind of movie, because you could tell they were kind of making it on the seat by the seat of their pants. So there's things in there that wouldn't probably be done by an experienced director,
But
but
they still work.
that adds to the charm.
Oh,
Because
wow.
and then there's some things in here that are actually kind of daring and subversive for that era, because it's almost, grindhouse level, right? So it could get away with some stuff that you couldn't get with in even the regular standard B movies. There's some violence in here that's kind of like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. And there's some sexual stuff that might be happening, or it definitely is insinuated. It's kind of like, oh, that's kind of weird, because it's Skid Row, right? So all of the denizens are around. So yeah, it's fun.
I that's a weird stumble, man. So you said you stumbled on it. How you again? It's just
It was somewhere. I was on some website and I just saw a picture of it. I said, "What is this?" And I went and searched it out. You could rent it for a couple bucks. It isn't streaming free anywhere that I could find, but also it's one of those movies that exists in a ton of forms on like YouTube and other places, because it's been redubbed a million
domain.
times and redone.
Yeah.
But like I said, you got to be careful. I believe the version that's the right version is like 57 or 58 minutes, and doesn't. If you get through the first opening scene where they zoom in on the window, almost like Psycho, where they zoom in on the window and you hear voiceover, you've got the wrong one. So,
Okay.
but it has its own cheesy charm, but I would say don't watch that one until you've seen the original and let it kind of.
Did you try the VO one, the Daughters of Horror one, and they said, you know what, I'm just gonna go the other way? Or did
I
you?
lucked out. I didn't know.
Okay.
I just
Whoa.
lucked out.
Wow. Okay. Cool. That is. I was gonna say Daughter of Horror, but it's actually Dementia. So you
Dementia.
go Dementia. Don't go Daughter of Horror. It's so funny on IMDb, Bruce. They have Dementia 1955, and the poster is Daughter of Horror. Remember, Daughter of Horror is the VO one. Bruce says go for the one that is not the silent film, but does not have all that VO. So Eric Holmes, what is your second and last pick for this week?
All right, my next one is one my brother has been trying to get me to watch since 2011, which is when this came out. And it's a movie by William Eubank on
The Signal?
No, Love. With
Love.
music
Okay.
by Angels and Airwaves. Now, I'm not a fan of Blink 182 at all, and Angels and Airwaves are fine. I wouldn't put them in, but if someone else is playing them, I'm like, okay, I can handle this. And it's basically a movie about a guy in space, and he loses contact with Earth, and they keep doing flashbacks to some story going on like World War I or II or something like that. As a movie on its own, it's not very good. But the only reason I brought it up is because I don't think the movie The Wall is very good as a narrative, but as a movie to do a bunch of weed or take a bunch of acid and just kind of let the movie wash over you, this movie's kind of on that same level.
Okay.
And I actually, another reason I wanted to even bring this up is I would like to see more movies like this. Take a band that you like that has a concept album and build a movie around it. I just like that idea. And they don't, again, like I said, The Wall, everyone knows The Wall. The Alan Parker, I believe, directed that.
Alan Parker.
And yeah, I mean, if you're watching it as a normal movie, it's not good, but you still want to watch it anyway, because sometimes you want to smoke some weed and you put it on The Wall and it's like, oh, this movie's pretty sweet. But maybe you've seen The Wall, ad nauseum. Maybe you want to put on something else. I think Love is worth checking out in that context. If you're gonna put this on and be like, oh, this is gonna be the best movie, it's not that movie. It's pretty to look at. And if you like Angels and Airwaves, and it's not a complete music video, because they play the Angels and Airwaves music kind of like score. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of accents certain things. I think in The Wall they played Pink Floyd more than they did Angels and Airwaves in this. But yeah, it's a neat oddity. And if you're the type of person that wants to do some drugs and kind of kick back and watch something neat, I would check this out. And I would hope that if you're in a band and you have a concept album, find a local filmmaker and just do something cool like this. maybe it's good, maybe it's not, but just make it look pretty and make it fit the music. And this is kind of like this is a recommend only under very specific circumstances.
I get that.
So Love, it's directed by William Eubank. William Eubank, after this 2011 film in 2014, he would direct the movie The Signal, starring Brenton Thwaites, Olivia Cook, and Bo. Let me see, what was that guy's name? He's a good actor. Bo something. I love
Bo Duke from the Dukes of Hazzard.
No, it's not Bo Duke. It's Bo Knapp. I love Bo Knapp as an actor as well. You guys have never seen The Signal? That's sci-fi.
That's
film.
that's not with Lawrence Fishburne.
Yes, that one. That one.
Yes, I have seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's you've never seen. Okay, so maybe that's something that you should check out. I don't know. Bruce, you were mixed on The Signal?
Yeah, I would say it's good. The way I remember it is it's good. It's not great, but it's good. It's worth watching.
Yeah, definitely worth watching.
They also did the Underwater with Kristen Stewart that just came out last year or earlier this year.
Did you like that?
So, I mean,
that's a good B movie.
Yeah, the guy's a good filmmaker, and this one Love looks fantastic. Like, just the visuals look great. But yeah.
Okay.
Make sure you have plenty of weed before you go in. Otherwise it might be a bust for you. But if you're in the mood for the wall, check this one out.
I'll give you my short wall thing. This is how we used to do it. Not just I had to describe any sort of substances. I'll just describe the way we did it was we had two tape players. And you know, if you have a tape player, because it's analog, it doesn't always play the same speed. So you'd start the faster one behind the slower one, so that about halfway through the wall, they would slowly catch up to each other. So they'd start out of sync and echo, go into sync, and then go back out of sync as you're listening to the wall.
That is an experience. That was
fun. That was our little lo-fi way of doing our trippy experience. Anyway, all right.
Way back in the day. That is nice. Okay, so you have a couple more, Bruce, before we get out of here.
I'm going to flip the order because I know you've seen one of them. So Greg at least. So I'll do that one last.
Okay.
So that way you can hop onto it. Okay. But I did finally get around to watching one that's been around for a month or so, The Wolf of Snow Hollow, which I've been hearing about for quite a while, and I've never got around to watching it. So I thought I better check this out. And I don't know if you ever got to see that, Greg. I know that Anderson saw it.
Anderson loves Jim Cummings guy?
Jim Cummings, yeah. So this is Jim Cummings' second feature, I believe, after Thunder Road. And he's a very specific style of writer, director, and actor. He writes, directs, and acts in both of the movies I've seen of his. So if you like his style, then you'll be on board. But this is directed by him, starring him, acting him, written by him, and also is the last movie with Robert Forster.
Okay.
And he plays the sheriff of the small town. He's the father of Jim Cummings' character, who is John. He's kind of like the deputy on the police force there. And then you have the other kind of notable person here is Ricki Lindholm. You may know her from Garfunkel and Oates. She's also an actress and has been in quite a few different roles. She plays a detective on their police force. And as you might guess, small snowy town, and there is a killing, and it looks like it might be a werewolf. And that's kind of the setup of the story. But to get the flavor of this movie, it's a very, very, very specific flavor. And Jim Cummings is like, boy, I don't know how to describe him. We talked about Coen Brothers earlier. I would say someone who is writing at almost that level, not the same style, but almost that level, is Jim Cummings. He produces a character and a situation in a way that makes you want to rewatch it because there's so much detail in the dialogue, and it's so funny and so weird, and there's so much packed into every scene that it makes you want to kind of go back and check it out again. And I think the selling point of this movie isn't the werewolf story, although it's fun, but the selling point of this movie is the unraveling. And this is really an unraveling of the Jim Cummings character. Basically, you got this guy who's already kind of on the edge. He's having trouble with his wife and his daughter. He's an alcoholic. So he's trying to go to his meetings, and he gets presented with a werewolf, and they can't figure out, or possibly a werewolf, and they can't figure out how to solve all these murders, and things are just spiraling out of control. And his unraveling is an amazing and totally enjoyable thing to watch. I love this movie quite a bit.
You love it. You know what's weird is a lot of people say Thunder Road is awesome, and they said the second one is still good, but not as good. It seems that you really love the second one, though.
I did, because I love genre movies. So this is like you take an actor and a style that you really like and throw it in a genre movie too. That's like two great flavors for me. So I would say I can easily see people liking Thunder Road even better. And I got to say, the beginning of Thunder Road, which starts with him, he's a police officer in both of them. The beginning of Thunder Road starts with him at his mom's funeral giving a eulogy. And it's about a 10-minute scene. And it's one of the most amazing acting and writing scenes that you'll ever see. Where, have you seen it, Eric? Greg?
Oh no, I haven't even seen any of them, but I'll
Thunder Road is on Amazon Prime. Watch the first 10 minutes. You will watch the rest, because
wow. I was already, because I heard a lot about this one, and then Anderson mentioned the Thunder Road, so both of those will be seen by me rather soon.
Yeah, Thunder Road is, and I won't go into a big review of that, but Thunder Road is a little more serious, but it's very similar. And in fact, I would say the only knock I would say after watching both these movies is he's playing kind of a similar type of character with similar kind of problems in both movies. I feel like these are demons he's actually working through. So it could just be what he's writing, because it's what is happening in his life. And I'm fine with that. But after those two, I want to see something a little different from him. And I was saying this online to, I think, Andrew Martin, and you'll appreciate this, Greg. When you watch one of these movies, imagine him in a Western. He needs to make a Western like yesterday. He would be
really? Wow.
Amazing. He could make an amazing, interesting Western.
Well, this Jim Cummings guy, you said you want a little bit of a variation, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But can he be one of these people, like the character is so indelible, where it's like a Charlie Chaplin or a Woody Allen? Can he, what I'm saying is, does he need to stretch too much, or can he just, would you be fine with him personally just playing a slight variation with each movie? Can he get away with it for another couple of movies down the road? He
could make that kind of his persona, sort of like the style he has. Mm-hmm. But I would say he either has to do like Woody Allen, where Woody Allen isn't always the star of all of his. Like sometimes he drops off to the side a little bit, or he just has to make the kind of the arc of what's happening to his character be a little different, because both of these movies he's basically unraveling, and not in exactly the same way. And that's why, in some ways, that's why I kind of like Snow Hollow a little bit more, because he's got the unraveling, but it's also got a werewolf murder mystery. So it gives you a whole other flavor in there, which is fun on its own right. So,
I am missing out on this. I'm missing out. It sounds so much fun. I'm surprised.
Really is. Mystery alone.
I'm surprised you haven't seen it, Eric. I'm surprised you haven't seen it sooner. I would think that you would have seen it by now, because
it's only for rental right now. So that could be part of the reason. And it's not, it's still like $5 or $6. In fact, I rented it. And my wife goes, "That was expensive." She said that to me. So the next day, my 15-year-old, my oldest boy, watched it. I was like, okay, I'm getting my money's worth out of it. And he liked it a lot too. So
very, very cool. And you said, what is your last one, Bruce, before we tease our next week's episode?
All right. So my last one is a 2018 movie directed by Nicolas Pesce on Netflix.
Yes.
And that's the movie Piercing. And you've seen Piercing.
Yes. I've interviewed him, and I loved it. You want to talk about it? Is it worthwhile? What do you think?
I really like this movie quite a bit. But this is a very even more specific flavor, I would say, than I think a lot of people could enjoy, like Snow Hollow. But this movie, you got to really be on board for what's going on here. So let's describe it really quick. You got a main character, Reed, played by Christopher Abbott, who we saw in Possessor this year.
Yes.
And he basically the movie starts out with him, and you know that he's on edge. In fact, one of the first shots is him over his crying baby with an ice pick. And you're like, what is happening here? And then, right? And then very quickly, he leaves to go on business. He gets a hotel room, and you see that he is making his meticulous plans to murder a prostitute. And that is the setup for this movie.
That's the entire plot. And then the prostitute's played by Mia Wasikowska.
Yes.
And what makes we're gonna go back and forth on this. I think what makes, because look, Nicholas Pesce or whatever, however, Pesce, however you pronounce a guy's name, he's best known. I guess he just really jumped out into the scene as far as if you're a cinephile or you love indie cinema with the 2016 black and white film The Eyes of My Mother, which I still not seen.
I have seen it, and I don't like it near as much as this movie. So I'll just say that.
Was it real quick? The Eyes of My Mother, was that black and white one? Came out like 4 years ago, something like that.
Exactly. Was
that was a weird movie? I like that one. It was a weird movie, but sorry, go on.
No, weird. Okay, well, you liked it. And Bruce, did you, from The Eyes of My Mother, you didn't like it, but did you say to yourself, maybe after watching it, this person might be able to do something I like? Okay.
I didn't hate it, but it had tons of style and it was really interesting. It just didn't quite work for me. This works a lot better, and it's very stylish in a different way, I think. So
Bruce, I wonder, so Nicholas, I didn't see The Eyes of My Mother. You know his work more than I do. I love Piercing because it's a low budget film, but he's doing the entire set design himself. And I was blown away, and I continue to be blown away why more films aren't made in this stylized universe. So
well, he and this, we talked about a few movies like this, right? We talked about Bug and some movies that are very I mean, this could be a play almost. You could totally imagine this almost being a play. Yeah. It's basically in two main locations, although there's other locations, but two main locations, the hotel room and somewhere else. I won't say where because it tells you things about what happens in this movie. Yeah. But he does so much with that area. And I wanted to mention too, like, he is obviously playing with giallo in this movie a great deal.
Yes. I would have appreciated that movie more after watching Suspiria.
Yeah. So he drops in a split screen in like one of the first, maybe the first 15 minutes, there's a split screen. And he is, during that split screen is the Goblin soundtrack from Deep Red. Later on, he has some of the soundtrack from Tenebrae. Plus a bunch of other soundtracks are thrown in there. So this, he knows, and there's yellow all over the place in this movie, and the poster is yellow. So
you're saying Eric Holmes will go crazy for this movie? Is that what you're saying?
I think so, but okay. And we're not going to say too much more other than we talked about the setup, right? You can guess it's a 90-minute movie. It's not going to go exactly as he plans, but we're not going to say how it does or doesn't go exactly how he plans. But the interplay of what goes on is really intriguing. It plays a ton with the idea of gender roles and what fantasy versus what actually is going to happen. Because this is a big, giant fantasy that this guy's created in his mind of this perfect murder he's going to commit. And there's another movie that this is highly related to because this is based on a written work. And I don't want to say the other movie that the writer of this also had a movie based on, but if you know it, it would tell you something about this movie.
Oh, I'm completely okay. So we won't.
Let's just say this: there's a very, very infamous Japanese movie from the late 90s that was based on another writing by the same author that this movie is based on. And when you know that, it makes absolute sense.
Oh, right. Gotcha. Yeah. Yes. And, to your point, Bruce, it's an hour and 21 minutes. It's beautiful to look at. If you're a cinephile, you're going to love what Nicholas does with this film. But if you are squeamish, listeners or viewers, piercing is something that might put you off. We were talking about giallo cinema, sometimes with the reds and everything like that. I've only seen Suspiria, so I found it to be violent, but it's the colors that, it's a beautiful looking movie. Piercing is beautiful to look at, but there are moments where you just get a little bit squeamish. I got a little bit. So
and it's not classic giallo. It's not a mystery per se, but it's like a modern story told through a giallo lens, kind of,
which begs the question. I interviewed him for Piercing. I have not seen The Grudge yet. The Grudge got a lot of bad reviews.
Yeah.
And so Eric just made a face.
I never seen Ju-on. Didn't like The Grudge and didn't like the new Grudge either.
So was there anything redeemable about the new Grudge at all for you, Eric?
To quote Bruce, the cameras were on. It has sound. It's dumb. It's really dumb.
That strikes me. I mean, I haven't seen it because I've heard the same things. It strikes me that that's probably like he got something he was given to direct, but it wasn't like his passion project, I'm guessing. Yeah. Whereas this feels like something that's he's on board for this, you know.
Yeah. Then the new, the old remake Grudge, the one with Sarah Michelle Gellar. I just remember that movie played, and then I was like, okay, that was a movie, and I just seen The Ring before that, and The Ring's actually, I really like that one. Yep. And so the Grudge was like The Ring but lesser. And then the remake of The Grudge was a completely different story. There were some parts in it that were kind of cool, but overall, I don't bother. It's not going to turn you on to Japanese cinema, that's for sure.
Well, Piercing is a movie that if you can get past a little bit of the squeamish, the blood stuff, and if you can get past that, there's a lot of cinema involved to watch. It's really cool stuff, especially if you want to make your own film, because you might be inspired by how this movie is made for such a low budget, but it looks awesome.
And you can't underestimate Mia in this movie. She's
so great.
She is about the best I've ever seen her. And she's been good in a lot of things, but she's really good in this. And probably in a way you're not used to seeing her in a lot of movies.
Yes. Yes. Piercing, underrated film. Did you say streaming? Where's it streaming? Or
it dropped on Netflix recently.
Oh, just dropped on. Okay. Just dropped on Netflix.
Within the last week. So I was like, oh, wait, I remember Greg talked about that a long time ago. I wanted to see that movie. So,
and I thankfully within the last couple of years, I know a little bit more about Giallo. I wish I saw it now again. Maybe I'll do a rewatch. But when I interviewed him, all I asked him was about a De Palma question, about how much he loved De Palma. So, yeah, by the way, every single episode, I'm going to just drop De Palma just indiscriminately as I continue to do. But we're not talking about De Palma anymore. We're going to talk Eric Holmes. Who are we going to talk about next week when we do our director spotlight for Find Your Film? And why was this your choice?
I know the name and I forgot how to pronounce it correctly. Ida Lupino. Lupino?
Yes.
Yes. And we're doing Outrage and On Dangerous Ground.
Yes, Outrage, On Dangerous Ground, and maybe
or Hitchhiker.
Or one of those.
Definitely On Dangerous Ground, and then maybe Outrage, maybe Hitchhiker. Maybe some of us will do one and some of us will do the other. We'll see what happens, but. Yeah. I when you propose On Dangerous Ground and what to talk about on there, that really excited me. So we're definitely doing that one.
And my mother, my listeners, I don't know if she's gonna hop in next week, but she's adamantly has been nagging me the whole week, nagging me in a good way, I think, nagging me to go see the Ida Lupino film Roadhouse. She keeps on a daily basis, so I might have to throw, like you said, it seems
Patrick
weird.
Swayze is great in that one. I love
so
that.
Good.
So, but yeah, On Dangerous Ground was definitely something that we're gonna cover. I'm thinking maybe Bruce Perky. Me and Bruce might have some extra little homework before the actual spotlight. When we do our Find Your Film recommendation next week, we might do a little. We'll tag team on an Ida Lupino film, The Bigamist, which Eric Holmes covered last week. Okay, so you would recommend The Bigamist, even though it's a soapy movie.
I would. It's not really sappy. It's kind of realistic. I mean, as those movies do, and I did a terrible job of selling that thing last week. But
well, you know what? It might be
The Bigamist is definitely worth watching.
It might be one of those like Douglas Sirk kind of movies, Bruce. So I know it's not our wheelhouse, but it might be something worth checking out. But we'll definitely, for next week, listeners, definitely, you know what? Maybe you guys do a little bit of homework too. Check out maybe Ida Lupino's On Dangerous Ground or The Bigamist, which she stars in and directs as well. But we're going to be talking a lot about her work for next week. Bruce, anything you want to say before we head out?
Go see Fatman. It's really good. Really good.
Go see Fatman, and if you want to check our video, the video version of this podcast, check out Bruce Berkey's YouTube channel, Rustomeyer, where there's going to be a lot of movie reviews as well as just asides dripping with sarcasm, just like you did right now. Eric Holmes, you're going to lead us out on this one. Anything you want to say?
I cannot wait to make the Fatman poster with Bruce's quote that he just said on it.
Right.
Yeah. Looking forward to Ida Lupino, and actually looking really forward to watching, especially those last two you mentioned. I might just have to do an all rewind episode because I still got to watch the Painted Bird, and there's a couple of them. But I'm like, I can't do all
By
rewinds.
the way,
you know what?
Bruce,
maybe I'll just do all rewinds.
The Painted Bird, by the way, it might go down as one of my top 20 of 2020. As Bruce is just probably combusting right now, just like, or I expect that from Greg. But Bruce, did they really harm animals in the Painted Bird? Do you think those are real?
I wouldn't be surprised. It might have. Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's some really just cruel stuff. Like, not spoiling it for you, Eric. There's some, you were talking about animals and everything. If you might, I don't know. What do you think, Bruce? Do you think Eric Holmes should go check out the Painted Bird? Considering
I don't think it's not overtly. I mean, I'm not sure. We're not sure they did, but I wouldn't be surprised. There's some stuff in there that makes it seem like there might. I think the thing at the beginning, I think I've heard that did not happen for real.
Okay.
So,
wow.
But remember, even when I reviewed it, I even said that I thought it was even borderline on the kid, like the stuff the kid was put into some situations. I thought,
oh my God, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something else. Oh, and also, I've been saying this since our first episode back in July. Our website, findyourscene.com, it's still in the process of molding, but what we're going to be doing for our podcast, when we're doing our director spotlight, we're going to actually, David Mamet, I have this, Brian De Palma, William Friedkin, all of those directors will be up on the website, and we will be doing updates on all of their directors whenever they have a movie coming out, or maybe we will use each of these. Like, for example, William Friedkin, if we'll post it on the website, and it'll be a place where you can actually find as much information as you can from said director, or maybe even Alice Guy Blaché, which Eric Holmes introduced to us, and of course Ida Lupino. So that hopefully that website will be a resource for you guys, for you cinephiles, to look up directors and see what they have made, what they're making, all that kind of stuff. So more to come on that as the weeks ensue. Until then, we will see you guys next week.